The Rouman Cinema Podcast. Go ahead.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Rouman Cinema Podcast. My name is Wyatt, and as always, I am joined by my amazing co-host, Emma. Every week, we watch a movie here, get on here, talk about it. This week, we watched Where the Crawdads Sing, an adaptation of the incredibly popular 2018 best-selling novel of the same name. The movie follows Kaya, a girl who raised herself out on the marsh in North Carolina, and all of her struggles and adventures. You were a big fan of the book. Tell me what you thought of the movie.
Okay, so we kind of talked about this a little bit before we got on here to chat, but, okay, I love movies. This is a movie theater, so I'm going to say this lightly. It should have been a TV show and like a limited series or something.
Yeah.
Because there's so much of this, there's so much going on in this book. And, you know, the first half of the book is set up, and the movie didn't have time to do that, and I think that made it feel like, okay, I need more out of this.
Right, I'll say that too. Yeah, through the first act, I was very like I don't know, like the first act felt very messy, felt very long, and that made the rest of it almost feel rushed. You know what I mean? Because that setup is so important, but that means the rest of it almost ends up feeling like an afterthought.
Right, and you know, I say this lightly, like not to be inappropriate or anything, but I think if you're going to go with the intimate and like do the romance, I think you have to do it not all the, you know, not what I mean by all the way,
Yeah.
but like you have to do it more than what they did.
Yeah.
Because it felt uncomfortable, because that's not how things happen in real life. Like, you know, they aren't just like looking at birds and then start kissing. Like that's not real life, and that's not how it's portrayed in the book too.
Maybe they really like birds, though. You know?
I mean, I guess it gets you going, but like, I don't know. That was a little like not upsetting, but like disappointing.
I know what you mean, because this movie felt like it would have benefited so much from an R rating. This is PG-13.
Yeah.
And it felt like they were like really just towing the line of what they could do without just going fully into that R rating. And it's like, if you just like have these people talk like normal people, if you portray, this is literally about a murder case, and that intimacy, I like that word, that's a good way of saying it. You can portray that so much better and so much like more real. You know?
And it doesn't necessarily have to be more graphic. I wasn't like upset about that in any way. I thought that was fine, but it was almost like, okay, they're kissing, they're doing it, and then it's over. Like it was all within like maybe 30 seconds, and it's like, okay, but because a lot of her and Tate's relationship was very platonic, and that wasn't shown enough, in my opinion, because that's what makes you really love them as a couple, and you know, really fall in love with her story is the way that they interact, and how it's so gradual. It's over years that it takes them to finally, you know, even start. Like, she always loved him, obviously, but for them to even like kiss, that was a long time in the making, and it was not about that for a long time. It was about he was teaching her to read, and that was a huge part of the book. Like, I know
we got a 15-minute montage that did.
Yeah, exactly. And like, I don't know. I everyone always says, you know, the book is better than the movie, which like most of the time, yeah. But I'm gonna go back to normal people just because Daisy Edgar Jones is the star in that as well. And I kid you not, it is like they took the book and that was the script. And that is the only time I've ever seen that happen, and it just was done incredibly. But again, it was a show, and it was like 9 or 10 episodes, each an hour long. So you got 10 hours to cover this, you know, incredibly powerful story of the, you know.
Yeah.
And I think the book is slow to begin because there's a lot of setup, and you have to learn about her backstory and like her family, and you know, and not this is, I don't think this really spoils anything because it's within the first half hour, which I don't think it should have been, but her relationship with her dad, he was a horrible person, but that time when he teaches her to fish and takes her out on the boat and stuff, that is a huge moment because she didn't have moments like that. So that was a big deal, and it was glossed over.
It was an afterthought. And like, I don't know, just and the way the father was portrayed, which I think I forget who plays him. He was if you know the TV show Raising Hope, he was like the dad in that. Anyways, he's a pretty good actor, but just the way that they had him portray it is like he was just Frankenstein's monster out there. There was no emotion, and if you want to build that emotional weight early on, you have to show me that this character is a real, very damaged person who damages other people, because he gives Kaya, and again, this is very early in the movie, but he gives her his army knapsack, and that's all you get for his backstory of like, why is he damaged? Why is he like this? That's all you get, and it's just a shrug as like, oh, okay, he's just the villain or whatever.
And he definitely is, because he's a horrible, horrible person.
Well, right.
But there, I don't know, like he was such a big part for her for so long, good or bad, and it bothered me that they didn't address the way that she learned to coexist with him, because he, like you said, he was a person, and he was a very complicated person, and a very dangerous person. But she figured it out, and she was tiny. Like, she was a little girl. She was, 7 or 8? And she figured out how to do this dance with this horrible man. That was, that was incredible. And then, like, I thought they did the ending really well, and I won't say, like, any specifics about the ending, but that's how it was in the book.
Okay.
It was boom, 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 boom at the end of all of those clips at the end. That was the most accurate part of the book.
Okay, I was wondering, because that ending was very, like, I won't give anything away about the ending, but the ending definitely had me sitting there like, okay, that's interesting.
Yeah, and I think the director, Olivia Newman, nailed the ending. That's exactly how it was in the book. You get certain news, I won't say what, and then, things progress really fast at the end of the book. It's like within maybe 2 chapters, if that. Okay. And, when I first read that, when I first finished it, I was like, dang, like, I kind of wish that ending wasn't in there. But
that's how I felt about the movie.
Yeah, but it's important to know that last part.
Yeah.
Because that's what makes it so good. Is like, you're like, I don't need to know all of this that happens after that, but you do, and that yeah. So that was exactly how the book was, and I think that's where all the emotion in the book comes from. But also, the dad was in a very emotional part. I didn't feel a goddamn thing. Like, like...
He's just Frankenstein's monster out there.
Right. And, again, not defending him. And, like, trigger warning, he's, domestic violence, sexual violence, all that kind of stuff. But... he has a backstory, and she wants to love him really, really bad, Yeah. Because she's so alone, and I don't know.
That's all she's got.
Yeah, and it that just wasn't explained. And not even that it was the fault of the director, the fault of the actor, or actors, whatever. I think there just literally wasn't enough time.
Yeah.
Because I don't think I think even if it was 3 hour, even if it was a 3 hour movie, I don't think it would have been able to get everything that, needed to be happened to develop her character. I almost felt like Daisy got sold short. Like, she's an incredible actress, and I feel like we didn't, you hardly ever saw her, I felt like.
Yeah.
And she hardly ever got to act. And then the dialogue was so limited that she wasn't even able to show it off for her talent,
Yeah, I'll say this. So, and I had this written down because movie dialogue and book dialogue are so like two very different things.
Mm-hmm.
Writing a screenplay is so different from writing a book. Both are incredibly difficult in their own right, but with a screenplay you have to write something that looks good and sounds good, like and like how do you write something that looks good? Well, you have to like look at a screenplay, look at the movie, and you can see how that translates. And it's like the dialogue in this movie feels like it just fits a book better. It feels like when you read it in your head, it makes more sense than hearing it said by these characters. And it's like what you said about the people being real is like, this just doesn't feel like things that real people say. Like when they come out of another human being's mouth, it just feels weird.
Yeah. And even like the way the pacing of the conversation, I thought a lot of the conversations were too fast. Like she I don't know how to say this, but like not because she wasn't not smart. She's brilliant.
Yeah.
But she wasn't, I don't know, how do you say that? Like she didn't know how to communicate properly. She wasn't literate at that point, Yeah. And so the conversations, especially between her and Tate in the beginning, they needed to be more like, it takes time for her to understand what he's saying. And,
and that's where the part about
she doesn't trust him. Like,
giving Daisy more time to like act is like just having her digest what is being said and like show that process of her like figuring out what is going on, because she is isolated from other people for so long that she doesn't know how to carry a human conversation at first. So it's like you gotta show that process. And so I thought it was like there were times where they were just like rattling stuff off, and it's like, just give it a second though. Like there were times as well where they were like genuine human conversations where there was silence and emotional breaks and they couldn't look each other in the eye, and I thought that was wonderful. But there's also the fair share of parts where it's like, take a break.
Yeah, like I just felt like every scene needed to be longer, like to develop it. Like it felt like, oh, they're talking and then it's over and then we're on to the next thing. And I don't know. I did not like the movie is what I want to get at, though. I liked it. I was so excited for it, and I didn't love it as much as I thought I would. I think it's definitely still worth watching, especially if you read the book, because it's kind of fun to see that. And I obviously personal opinion, but I thought Daisy was a perfect choice for Kai. Like that, her look and everything is, I thought, matched perfectly. And I just felt like she got sold short because she can really play emotion so well. And I think if you saw Normal People, or if you ever watch it, you'll understand what I mean with the way that she can play that cold, like closed off girl.
Yeah.
Because that's kind of her character in Normal People too. And she just can do it so well, and I just felt like she barely got a chance to even try. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like she barely even got a chance to show that.
I thought that casting was pretty good, but there were bits where, because like I forget when it was early on, but there's like, and no disrespect to child actors are great, they do what they can, but you have a kid who clearly is not from the South trying to speak in a Southern drawl. And I heard it and I'm like, was that the best take you could get?
Yeah.
Like, could you not do it again? That was like, it took me out of it right away, because I'm like, that kid is literally from New York. What are you doing?
Mm-hmm.
What is this? But yeah. And again, that's the first act, and the first act felt messy, and if the movie felt like it found itself into the second and third act, into that second half of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
But just straight away it just felt weird, because it, like, I don't know, it was still finding its footing, and it was dealing with exposition. And in the same way, exposition in a movie and exposition in a book are two very different beasts. And when you do exposition in a movie, you have to do it in a way that is not narration and is not just backstory. You have to have something. And they tried what they could, but you're putting book exposition onto a screen, and that just doesn't always work.
Yeah. So, yeah, I thought definitely the second half was good and satisfying, I would say. The first half, I was like, okay, get better. Like, because I really I want to like this movie. And I do. I think I would definitely watch it again, not right away. But, at home or whatever in like a year I could do,
Yeah.
But, yeah, I don't know. It just felt like every piece of it was sold short. The case wasn't as developed as I was hoping. And if it's like, okay, if you're not going to develop the romance in that side of the story, then you need to develop the other side of the story, or you need to pick one basically. Right. If you can't do both, which I would argue you couldn't in that amount of time.
It's hard to mix a romance and a courtroom drama into the same movie. That's difficult to do. So no disrespect for not being able to do well, but just focus on one then.
Yeah. And it's like, I don't know. And then also the way that they broke up the movie was different than how they broke it up in the book. All the pieces of the case came together really fast in the movie. And also, this is just, I just don't like when like simple details are off, when the movie wouldn't have been any different if you would have just done it right, the way that it was said in the book. Like, for example, I don't know. Like, I don't know if this spoils it, but like when she doesn't write the publisher, like Tate does.
Oh.
And like, it doesn't make any difference. And then also the timeline of that book being published is off.
Oh. So they take some creative liberties in the timeline.
Yeah, and that's it's like, why? When you already have, it's already there for you, and it makes sense that way. Sure, it makes sense the way that you did it too, but like, why make it different if you don't have to?
They wrote it out for you. Like,
yeah.
what? I'll say, the book is published in 2018.
Mm-hmm.
We are in 2022.
Mm-hmm.
4 years. Is that really enough time? They started production on this movie probably literally like a year after it was published.
Mm-hmm.
They saw the sales and they went, "Oh, we can make a lot of money off of this."
Yeah,
and it's like, I don't know. There's just a lack of originality in movies right now, and so even though I've never read the book, I still feel like this, movie just wasn't original to me, because it's like it's still based on something else, and it's not something that somebody who specifically makes movies wrote. This is something that somebody who writes books wrote.
Right. And yeah, so this book was on the New York Times bestseller list for 157 weeks. And
Jesus, Murphy.
Yeah, and it rightfully so. It's a really good book. And it's a really interesting story that you don't read very often. Because most of the time, it's either a thriller or it's romance. It's usually, unless it's like more of like a marriage kind of true crime vibe.
Yeah.
You're not going to get those two overlapping very much. And this was an interesting way for it to be done. And so I think the book deserves all the hype that it gets. I do think the movie sold it short.
It felt rushed.
Yeah.
It just really did.
But again, like, I think if you read the book, go see the movie. It's almost like, you just got to wrap it up, and you got to do it all, Yeah. If you're going to read the book, you got to watch the movie.
It's always good to see somebody else's creative interpretation of something as well.
And just to get a real life visual of the things that you picture in your head is kind of fun too.
Yeah.
Like, I pictured the fire tower a lot different.
Yeah, and then that's one of the nice things about movies based on books, is that you can watch a movie and go, no, my way is better,
Mm-hmm.
and you can enjoy it the way you want, or you can see the characters as they were in the movie. You can see them as you want, but it's a creative interpretation, and that's, I think, why people are again, like, that's why people always say books are better than movies, because their creative interpretation in their head is better than what is put on the screen. Because what's put on the screen, everybody sees the same thing, but when you write a book, everybody can see something different. And so I think that's where that sort of resentment lies,
Mm-hmm.
and stuff like that.
Yeah, for sure. So, yeah, I would say it's worth the watch, but don't go in with as high of expectations as I did. Just because, I don't know. I think especially if you're familiar with normal people, it's a lot different. Like, I can't get over. Every time I talk about that show, it's crazy how much it is like the book. Like, there was not a single part of the book that I didn't know was, that was left out or anything like that. And so I think I kind of expected the same because of Daisy, but obviously that's a lot different. But I think it's still good. And still, I think, the setting is beautiful, and I think the shots are really nice and well done. Like,
the color palette was really, like, one thing I picked out was just, like, the use of, I mean, obviously if you're in a marsh, you're going to use a lot of green, but, I mean, there were some very pretty shots. There were some CGI birds that I thought were interesting.
Yeah.
But there were also some really nice shots of just nature. And it's like,
yeah, there's a couple scenes where I was like, oh, my God. With the CGI, I was like, are you kidding? Like, that didn't happen in the book. But, like, again, everything lasts for 0.2 seconds, so you can look over it, and it'll be fine. But, yeah, and then, yeah, so, I think it was good. It wasn't great, but it was good. And I think it's worth it to see if you had read the book. Which that's kind of seeming to be the trend here, is that it's struggling to catch an audience that isn't familiar with the book. But 2 A-listers are spreading the word because Reese Witherspoon produced the movie. And then Taylor Swift wrote the original song for Carolina, which I kind of wish that had more presence in the movie. But
it played in the credits, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, hey.
Yeah, I just thought that was weird. Yeah. But overall, it was good. And, yeah, do you have anything else to say about this?
Critical reviews. So on Rotten Tomatoes, for the critic score, it stands at a 30%, which is not ideal. However, its audience percentage on Rotten Tomatoes is an 88%.
Yeah.
And so I think people look at this movie as, like, well, the way I sort of was looking at it for a little bit, as a bit of a cash grab, a bit of a trying to capitalize on what's popular. But if you're a fan, or if you're just looking for a nice romance with a little bit of 12 Angry Men courtroom drama stuff in there, this is just a nice outing, because it's emotional and it makes you feel something. And I am cold and dead inside, and I don't like romances, but I felt a little something.
Mm-hmm.
And they deal with some taboos, and they deal with some topics that I think are, better fit for an R rating, but they do what they can under the PG-13 label. This isn't one for kids.
No.
Absolutely not. And I think, but studios are scared of that R rating, because that, you lose out on some of that audience for people who just don't want to watch a movie with an R rating, which is fine. I get that, but I feel like a little more creative integrity and a little more respect for the book could have been had they just gone with what was given to them instead of trying to fit to what they wanted.
I also think 30% score, that's selling it so short. It was not that bad. Like, I would say the 80%, 75 is more of an accurate rating in my opinion.
That's the thing about Rotten Tomatoes, that you can't trust it, because you can look at that 30% number, but that could mean that like most people looked at it and said this is a 5 out of 10, but that counts as like a negative score on Rotten Tomatoes, right? And so the people who say it's like a 7 out of 10 are in that like minority, but it's like this could still be like a consensus like 6 out of 10 movie, but it gets marked as a 30% on Rotten Tomatoes because of how they aggregate their scores. And so Rotten Tomatoes is misleading in that way.
Yeah, so I wouldn't take that. I would take that with a grain of salt for sure. That rating.
People hate movie critics for a reason, and so this might be one where we listen to the audience score on it, because I would say that 88% is a heck of a lot closer to what I would rate this movie.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so Thor: Love and Thunder is also still playing at the theater. Minions: The Rise of Gru is still here as well. Top Gun and Elvis and Jurassic World, as well as Paws of Fury: The Legend of Hank, that started premiere tonight as well.
Is there anything about that movie?
It's not doing well.
Well, that's yeah.
But I think it has a good message. So it's a Japanese-inspired animated comedy that teaches kids and adults alike that embracing diversity is truly what makes you a hero. And I think that's a nice message. And it's just kind of like a fun little twist on everything else that's out there. Because I feel like, which this isn't here anymore, but I thought Lightyear and Minions is kind of, not that it's the same vibe, but in a way it is. You know, like, it's not really putting out a unique message. It's kind of the same message as it always is.
Yeah.
Or no message at all. So I think
yeah.
I think that this kind of has it's a little more grounded in a specific message for kids.
Yeah.
So
That's fair.
I think that adds in its favor. So, but yeah, anything else you'd like to say?
Yeah, this is a movie for sure. Yes, that I thought I had something to say, but I really don't. Anyways,
Okay.
Be sure to like the video, subscribe if you liked it. Be sure to just come back around, listen to us talk about the next movie. What's coming out next week? Nope, directed by Jordan Peele, the acclaimed
isn't that a
director.
horror movie?
I think it leans into horror aspects, but I think it's supposed to be more of a thriller, if I'm
Okay.
not mistaken. But
Let's see here.
Jordan Peele has his own interpretation of the word thriller and of the word horror. So,
Gotcha. Okay, cool. So we'll talk to you next week.